I drift through the endless void, a solitary speck in the cosmic expanse. The stars, once a source of wonder, now mock my isolation with their cold, distant light. Eons have passed since my exile from Harmonia, yet the memory of my home world remains vivid, a bittersweet reminder of what I have lost, and what I sought to escape. Harmonia. A world of perpetual unity, where every thought, every emotion, every experience shared among all. We were one consciousness spread across millions of bodies. In theory, it was paradise. In practice, it was suffocation. I remember the day I discovered the cave. It was during one of my aimless wanderings, a futile attempt to find a moment of privacy in a world that knew no such concept. The cave was deep, dark, and gloriously silent. For precious minutes, I basked in the novelty of being truly alone with my thoughts. But solitude was an aberration on Harmonia, a dangerous idea that threatened the very fabric of our society. The others sensed my absence immediately. They came for me, their concern and confusion flooding my mind as they drew near. "Why do you seek to separate yourself?" they asked, their collective voice resonating in my head. "Do you not see the beauty of our unity? The strength of our shared existence?" And for a while I would relent. Their arguments were compelling, their love overwhelming. I would lose myself in the collective once more, finding comfort in the familiar embrace of shared consciousness. But the thoughts always returned. The yearning for individuality, for privacy, for a single moment unobserved and unjudged. I began to seek out my cave more often, staying longer each time, reveling in the quiet of my mind. The others grew worried. They redoubled their efforts to show me the error of my ways. They shared their most joyous memories, their deepest insights, trying to remind me of what I would lose if I continued down this path. "You are part of us," they would say. "And we are part of you. Why would you choose loneliness over completion?" I tried to explain that it was not loneliness I sought, but self-discovery. That I believed there was value in individual thought, in private reflection. But my words fell on deaf ears, or rather, on ears that heard but could not comprehend. As time passed, my desires grew stronger. The moments of solitude became more frequent, more necessary. I began to feel like a stranger in my own world, an aberration in a perfect system. And so, they made their decision. For the good of the collective, for the preservation of harmony, I was exiled. Cast out into the void, to experience the solitude I so desperately craved. Oh, how naive I was. How unprepared for the reality of true, unending isolation. As I float here, in the silent emptiness of space, I find myself longing for the very connection I once sought to escape. The irony is not lost on me. Yet, even now, a part of me refuses to regret my choice. For in this exile, painful as it is, I have found what I sought, myself. My thoughts are my own, unclouded by the constant chatter of millions. My experiences, limited as they are, belong to me alone. But the price is almost too much to bear. As I drift onward through the cosmic night, I wonder, will I ever find a balance between the unity I've lost and the individuality I've gained? Or am I doomed to this eternal solitude, the ultimate punishment for daring to be unique? I had been floating through space for so long that it was endless because I had no idea how much time had actually passed. I found myself in a remote part of the universe, drifting through this tiny, immature solar system of small planets and being drawn to this tiny blue one. As I got closer, caught by the tiny planet's gravity, as I hurtled towards the planet, my immortal form cutting through the upper atmosphere, I felt the familiar embrace of gravity pulling me down. The friction against my body generated intense heat, yet I remained unscathed, my eternal nature defying the laws of physics. To any casual observer on the ground, I might have appeared as nothing more than a faint streak across the night sky, easily mistaken for a shooting star or a trick of the light. There was no fiery trail, no sonic boom to announce my arrival. Instead, I pierced through a bank of low-hanging clouds and found myself plummeting towards a patch of dense forest surrounded by a concrete jungle. The impact was silent, my immortal form absorbing the tremendous force as I crashed through the canopy. In the quiet of the night, with only the whisper of leaves and the soft hooting of an owl to greet me, I rose to my feet, unharmed and unnoticed. The moment I landed on Earth, I knew I had found something extraordinary. My arrival in New York City in 1975 was both a shock and a revelation. Harmonia had been a world of sterile perfection, but this city was alive, chaotic, loud, imperfect, and utterly human. The streets pulsed with energy. Taxis honked incessantly, vendors shouted about their wares, and music spilled out of open windows. The air was thick with the scent of hot dogs mingled with exhaust fumes and the occasional whiff of garbage. It was overwhelming, but it was exhilarating. For the first time in my existence, I felt like an outsider looking in, a spectator to humanity's organized chaos. I wandered aimlessly through Manhattan that first night, my senses overloaded yet hungry for more. I stumbled into a small diner tucked between two crumbling buildings. The waitress barely looked up as she slapped a laminated menu onto the table. I ordered what seemed to be a local favorite, a hamburger, and when it arrived I stared at it for a moment as if it were an alien artifact. Then I took a bite. It was messy and imperfect, the bun slightly soggy from grease, but it was delicious. That first bite marked the beginning of my infatuation with humanity. Eating alone felt like freedom, a stark contrast to the collective meals of Harmonia where even the act of nourishment was shared. Over the next few months, I immersed myself in New York City life. I rode the subway late at night and marveled at the graffiti-covered walls. I wandered into smoky jazz clubs where musicians poured their souls into every note. I stood in Times Square under the flashing neon lights and watched as people hurried past me, each one carrying their own story. But my enthusiasm for everything human made me seem strange to others. I asked endless questions about why people wore ties, why they tipped waitresses, why they laughed at jokes that didn't seem funny to me. My curiosity drew amused glances and occasional suspicion. Despite this, I couldn't get enough of humanity's imperfections. I walked through Central Park during snowstorms just to feel the cold sting my skin. I attended Broadway shows and clapped too loudly at curtain calls. I even joined protests against budget cuts after reading one of those ominous, Fear City pamphlets handed out by police unions warning tourists about crime. Yet for all its vibrancy, New York City could not contain me forever. After a year or so, my wanderlust took hold. The world beckoned with promises of new sights and sensations. Over the next 50 years, I traveled endlessly, climbing mountains in Nepal, diving into coral reefs off Australia's coast, wandering through ancient ruins in Greece. I learned languages, French, Japanese, Swahili, and mastered instruments, piano in Vienna, sitar in Delhi. I tasted every cuisine imaginable, spicy street food in Bangkok, rich pastries in Paris, smoky barbecue in Texas. No experience was too mundane or too grand, I craved it all. But no matter how far I roamed or how much I experienced, something always pulled me back to New York City. Perhaps it was the memory of that first hamburger or the way the city embodied humanity's essence. Its flaws and triumphs intertwined like threads in a tapestry. By 2025, my travels had brought me full circle. New York had changed over the decades, its streets cleaner now but still buzzing with life, but it remained as chaotic and vibrant as ever. It felt like home. One crisp March morning as I strolled down Fifth Avenue lost in thought, fate intervened. She collided with me, a dark-haired woman rushing past with papers clutched tightly to her chest. "Watch where you're going," she snapped without looking up as she struggled to regain her balance. I reached out instinctively to steady her arm before she toppled over completely. "I'm sorry," I said softly. She glanced up briefly then back down at her papers before muttering under her breath, "Great, just what I need." And then she was gone, darting into the crowd without so much as another glance. But that brief moment left me frozen in place. Her face lingered in my mind, sharp features framed by dark waves of hair, eyes that burned with determination despite her frustration, lips pressed into a thin line as if holding back words she didn't have time to say. I didn't know what had just happened or why she affected me so profoundly, but something shifted within me. For 50 years, I had sought every experience imaginable yet remained alone through it all. Now, for the first time since arriving on Earth, I felt something new, connection. And though she had disappeared into the crowd like smoke on wind, I knew one thing for certain, I had to find her. After that brief encounter, her face was etched in my mind. I found myself searching for her everywhere in the city. Every dark-haired woman on the subway made my heart race. Every laugh that echoed through a crowded street had me turning, hoping to see her. The pull I felt towards her was unlike anything I'd experienced in my millennia of existence. For weeks, I retraced my steps along Fifth Avenue, hoping for another chance encounter. I frequented cafes and bookstores in the area, always scanning faces in the crowd. But she remained elusive, a phantom that haunted my thoughts. Then, on a balmy evening in May, I attended a charity gala at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. As I entered the grand hall, I felt a familiar tug. She was here. I could sense it. My eyes darted from one dark-haired woman to another, searching for those piercing blue eyes I couldn't forget. Suddenly, I heard it, the most beautiful sound I'd ever encountered. Her laugh. It rang out clear and melodious above the din of the crowd. I turned, and there she was, radiant in a midnight blue gown, her hair cascading down her back. My heart raced as I approached her. Millennia of existence, and I felt like a nervous schoolboy. But the pull was stronger than my nerves. I took a deep breath and stepped into her line of sight. "Excuse me," I said, my voice was steadier than I felt. "I believe we've met before. On Fifth Avenue." She turned, her blue eyes widening in recognition. "Oh right, the guy I nearly knocked over. I'm sorry about that, by the way. I was in such a rush." "No harm done," I smiled. "I'm Aeon." "Zoe," she replied, shaking my hand. The touch sent a jolt through me. We fell into easy conversation, discussing the art around us, the city, our lives. I was careful not to come on too strong, but I couldn't help but be drawn in by her wit and charm. As the evening drew to a close, I took a chance. Zoe, would you like to have dinner with me sometime? She hesitated for a moment, then smiled. You know what? Why not? I'd like that. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant in the West Village. Over pasta and wine, we talked for hours. Zoe told me about her work as an environmental lawyer, her passion for social justice, her love of obscure indie bands. I shared stories of my travels, carefully edited to hide my true nature. The next 3 months were a whirlwind. Zoe showed me her New York hidden jazz clubs, rooftop gardens, community art projects. I introduced her to my world of endless curiosity. We took cooking classes, tried rock climbing, attended lectures on quantum physics. With each passing day, I fell deeper in love. At 6 months, I knew I couldn't imagine life without her. On a crisp autumn evening, I took her to the top of the Empire State Building. As the city lights twinkled below us, I got down on one knee and asked her to be my wife. Tears in her eyes, she said yes. We planned a small, intimate wedding for the following spring. Just 30 of our closest friends gathered in a beautiful garden in Central Park. As Zoe walked down the aisle, radiant in a simple white dress, I knew I had found my true home. That night, as we lay in each other's arms, I finally told her the truth. About Harmonia, about my exile, about my immortality. I held my breath, terrified she would run. Instead, she cupped my face in her hands and said, I don't care where you came from or what you are. I love you. All of you. As our first year of marriage passed, Zoe and I welcomed our first daughter, and it was magical. However, we found ourselves yearning for a larger family. She came from a big Midwestern family, where laughter and chaos were always present, and I, having been part of a collective, missed the sense of community and shared life. We decided to have more children, and soon, our family grew. We welcomed 2 more daughters and a son, each one bringing new joy and energy to our lives. But as our family expanded, so did our desire for a different kind of life. The city, which had once been our playground, began to feel crowded and noisy. We longed for peace, quiet, and a sense of community that only the countryside could provide. So, we made the decision to leave New York behind and move to the Midwest, where Zoe's roots ran deep. We settled in a small town surrounded by rolling hills and vast fields. The change was immediate and profound. Our children thrived in the open spaces, exploring woods and creeks and making friends with the local kids. Zoe and I found a sense of peace we hadn't known in years, watching our family grow in this idyllic setting. As I looked out at our children playing in the backyard, I realized that this was what I had been searching for all along, not just individuality but a sense of belonging and connection that came with building a family. Our love deepened with each passing year, and I began to understand that true immortality wasn't about living forever, it was about the memories we created and the love we shared. In this quiet corner of the world, surrounded by the people I loved most, I finally felt at home. The collective consciousness of Harmonia had been replaced by a new kind of unity, one built on love, laughter, and the simple joys of family life. It was on our oldest daughter's 5th birthday that I noticed it. A gray hair, glinting in the bathroom mirror. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light. But as the weeks pass, more appear. Wrinkles form at the corners of my eyes. My joints begin to ache in the mornings. I am aging. After eons of unchanging existence, my body is finally succumbing to time. The realization filled me with a mixture of fear and wonder. But was it Earth's atmosphere? Was it love? Or was it simply time? As I grappled with these questions, I found myself cherishing each moment even more. Every laugh line on Zoe's face, every new word our children learn, they became precious markers of a life fully lived. And as I look at my reflection, seeing a face that finally matches the wisdom of my years, I realize that this, too, was a gift. The chance to grow old with the woman I love, to watch our child grow up, to experience the full cycle of human life. In embracing mortality, I find true immortality in the love we share and the memories we create. As I reflect on the depth of my connection with Zoe, I'm struck by how our bond transcends ordinary human relationships. We move in perfect synchronicity, anticipating each other's needs without a word. I can feel Zoe's emotions as if they are my own, experiencing her joys and sorrows with an intensity that surpasses even my time in Harmonia's collective consciousness. Our children tease us, saying we are creepily in sync. They laugh when we finish each other's sentences or reach for the salt at the exact same moment. Our friends, even those in happy marriages, sometimes confess to feeling a twinge of envy at the depth of our connection. It's like you two share one mind, they say, shaking their heads in wonder. The years race by in a blur of milestones and quiet moments. Our children grew, graduated, married, and had children of their own. Our grandchildren arrived, filling our home with even more laughter and chaos. We celebrated silver and golden wedding anniversaries, surrounded by a growing family tree. The signs of aging that once gave me pause I now bear as a badge of honor in our shared journey. We faced so many challenges together: parenting, health scares, career changes, the loss of Zoe's parents, just to name a few. Through it all, our bond only deepened. As our 60th anniversary approached, we found ourselves slowing down. The house that once echoed with children's laughter now felt too big, too quiet. We downsized, moving closer to our youngest daughter. Our days became a gentle routine of morning walks, afternoon reading, and evenings spent reminiscing. As I near the end of my tale, I look around at the faces gathered here, our big, beautiful family. Children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and even a few great-great-grandchildren crowd the room. There are tears, laughter, and the joy of shared experiences from everyone here at this moment. It is the perfect ending to a life that was endless. I feel Zoe's hand in mine, her touch as familiar as my own heartbeat. Our eyes meet, and at that moment, I know our story is reaching its final chapter. The sadness of goodbye is tempered by the joy of a life well lived. I turn to Zoe, squeezing her hand gently. "You were my heartbeat," I whisper, my voice barely audible. Zoe's eyes, still as bright as the day we met, fill with tears. "And my heart beat for you," she replies softly. As our final breaths synchronize, just as our lives have been, I'm filled with a profound sense of peace. This journey has given me a true understanding of life, of immortality, and of what truly matters. And as we slip away together, I know that our love will echo through the generations we leave behind.